boardroom in crisis, family at odds, decisions that could decide the fate of a multi-billion rupee empire. In a family business, power isn't just about profit. It's personal. In this episode of Building Legacy, BCG's Janmejaya Sinha catches up with Sunil Kant Munjal, chairman of Hero Enterprises, someone who's part of the family behind the Hero Group, one of the world's largest two-wheeler manufacturers, from steering a small bicycle shop into a global giant, to navigating the delicate transition between generations. Sunil Kant Munjal has seen how personal rivalries and business pressures collide and how to keep both the company and the family intact. In this candid conversation, he opens up about the roots of internal conflicts, how families can separate emotion from strategy, and why preserving relationships is just as important as protecting the bottom line.
Sunil, it's a pleasure to be talking to you about family businesses. This is an area where I would call you as one of the most thoughtful people in India. But before I allow you to tell me about family businesses, you have to answer a very interesting question for me. How is it you were allowed to go to Doon School?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure I was allowed. I was studying in PPS Nabha when I requested the headmaster if I could sit for the entrance test for Doon School, and they actually made a test center at the school to allow me to sit for the test. And once I cleared the test and got the admission, I had a second challenge because the headmaster spoke to my father and said, "We don't want him to go." I was, I guess, doing reasonably okay. It was only class 5 and 6 that time. So it took a little bit of doing actually to get the clearance to get to Doon School. And I'm glad I did. It was certainly a life-changing experience.
But did it create any tensions that, none of the other brothers had gone there?
Not that I know of. Actually, this never came up on any conversation as something that somebody else would have liked to or wanted to. I did have a nephew of mine go later on, Abhimanyu, only in the next generation. But in our generation, I was, in any case, in our immediate family, the youngest, otherwise the second youngest in the larger family of the working members.
Oh, okay. So tell me, when you went to Doon, say 10th, 11th standard, did you know where your career would take you?
At that time, what used to happen was whenever we went home for the holidays, we were either in Ludhiana or we used to visit Delhi, other than taking breaks on holidays other places. In Ludhiana, the conversation, interestingly, at the dining table, otherwise in the house, a lot of it was around the business and the companies. Because our family and my uncle, my father's younger brother, Om Prakash ji's family, lived together in one home with no wall between the two. There was a lot of conversation the two of them used to have on a daily basis about what's going on, what to do, what not to do. So there was a lot of exposure very early days. And also it was a very enjoyable trip to go and visit one of the factories when we used to be there. At that age, you have no responsibility except that you're making a fun trip. And there was something which kind of drew me to the engineering bit, to the design bit, to the innovation that used to take place there. I found that quite fascinating. But I had no clue at that time or no deep thinking that this is the only thing I want to do. I guess it's something which evolved over a period of time.
And then once you joined the company, did you feel any pressure carrying the name?
So I think we had a very good system that at entry, you were not given a senior position. You had to either intern or train with somebody. If it was a family member, it would not be your own father, or it could be a senior executive of the company. So I was lucky. I got to train in 4 or 5 of the companies in the group, including with some of our very, very significant senior executives of the company, including one gentleman whose example I've given many times, Bhagatji. He was one of the founding team of Hero Cycles, along with my father and my uncles. He was a gentleman who used to come to factory and work in kurta pajama. He used to have 2 pens in his pocket and 2 pads in his hand. So I asked him one day, I said, Bhagatji, why do you carry 2 pads and 2 pens? He's saying, this is the pen and pad given to me by the company. So if I do company work, I do it on this pad and with this pen. This is my own I bring from home. If I have anything other than company work, I use my own pen and my pad. So the level of honesty that I learned from this gentleman was absolutely amazing. And he had a super sharp mind, which could pick flaws which the early days of the computer sometimes were not able to pick. So there was a lot of learning in those days from many different people in the companies, including seeing difficulties, including seeing challenges and failures. So I don't know if having the family name actually made it difficult or made it more interesting, because I got a little bit of training in Highway, a little bit in Rockman, a little bit in Majestic, a little bit in Hero Cycles, and then over a period of time I worked at Highway Cycles, then got an opportunity to put up a brand new business, which was a complete diversification of the group.
But tell me, you all were 4 brothers.
Correct.
And there was one company basically.
No, actually, okay. No. So the one thing that we were very fortunate about was there were many, many companies. As a philosophy, the group has always only spoken about those things where there's a compliance requirement or a business/consumer business requirement. Otherwise, we've kept quiet, and there are many, many businesses in the group which allowed a very good spread people to go to different places, get different exposures, etc.
But 3 of you were, Raman, Pavan, yourself were in Hero, the motorcycle company, no?
So, again, not at the same time. So, Raman Bhai Sahab was the founder of what was then called Hero Honda. The Hero name in the early days was for the bicycle business, because that was the founding company, and that was the, in a sense, the mothership for everything came out of there. Hero Honda went on to become the much bigger enterprise. Raman Bhai Sahab was the founding MD of that company, and Pavan went along with him
But
earlier.
What was your father doing at that stage?
He was in Ludhiana in the early days. He was very actively engaged in designing, getting the permissions, getting the licenses, figuring out where to set it up, etc., and very engaged in the partnership with Honda. But he was still in those days in Ludhiana, sitting at Hero Cycles, but managing the entire group. While he was not the eldest in his generation, but from the very early days, he was the one who went out, got new ideas, new technologies, new partnerships, and was designated chairman of the group. So he did kind of play a role as a chairman of the group since the very, very early days.
So, how did your father and his brothers decide to separate the business?
So this was actually a recommendation I had made to them, because family-owned businesses, as you know, is a subject on which I both studied and lectured and written around the globe. And I saw something interesting. World over, the challenges and problems that one faces in a family-owned business are very similar. if not nearly identical. The solutions, however, are customized and based on the local geography, social acceptances, culture, etc. So I recommended to my father and my uncles that we should look at restructuring the business. And their first reaction was of extreme anger. They actually got upset with me. They fired me and saying, "What's wrong with you? You know, people give examples of our family, how we are so close, the families all get together all the time, we live close by, the companies are doing so well." And my response was exactly, who actually does it at this time? Because the problem normally comes when there are a large number of people with differing aspirations, differing point of views, which they sometimes cannot express. And the challenges which trigger these are normal human issues. You know, somebody's home is bigger than somebody else's, somebody's spouse has got a better jewelry set or wearing a more expensive shawl, someone spent more on one wedding than another one. So it's not even relevant big business issues which normally trigger these. So they took a little bit of time, and after a few days, then they asked me lots of questions. And then they said, if this is going to be good, then we must do it. And that was the beauty I felt up, even at that age, advanced age, that very
How
good
old were
thinking.
you then?
Good question. That's about, I was, I think, about 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when your elder brother passed away, sadly, how did the family cope?
That was actually a big shock in '91. And in our generation, he was kind of the lead who was leading many initiatives, and he had set up Hero Honda and created a unique network of ancillaries, connecting the dealerships, using the same culture of Hero cycles, but making it more contemporary, more modern, more technology driven. With Honda's help, we had got some wonderful technologies as well. So losing him was a big shock for the family, and I could see, especially for my parents. My father for a while was completely broken, completely shaken up. But he chose then to move to Delhi from Ludhiana, take on the responsibility along with Pavan, who was involved in the operational side. And he also told my sister-in-law, Renu Bhavi, that you come to the office. He got her a desk next to his in the office, saying, the family will be completely taken care of. So no one feels left out or left behind. And that is the way the whole system had actually worked for decades, that the system worked for everybody no matter what your role, which business you worked in, because not all businesses were large. They were of varying sizes, varying kinds. Some were consumer facing, many were not. And many, of course, were in engineering and manufacturing. But over a period of time, we did do diversification into services and other things as well. And so that caused a restructuring because my father moved off to Delhi. So the corporate office and the family office kind of fell in my lap because I used to work with him in Ludhiana quite a bit in those days.
Okay. So that's how and then I just want to explore 2 or 3 different themes. At what stage did you feel that you would be wanting to do something else rather than to stay within the group?
Oh, you mean the restructuring we did in our generation? So when we did the larger generation, larger restructuring of the group in my father's generation, we had 32 companies at that time, by the way, big and small. And half a dozen of them were actually global leaders. So it was a fairly unique, unusual restructuring done in the country at that time. And we created a structure that if anybody wants to separate or restructure in the future, it was like a plug and play which we had created. without too much pain, without too much of additional work having to be done. It could be some of the families had decided to restructure the next generation concurrently when we did the elder generation. So in our generation, it happened about 10 years ago. We took a decision, and I walked out of the major business, the two-wheeler business, in fact.
But can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Families want to know, how do you start this conversation? I mean, who do you have it with? How is it that, how can you have it in a civilized and dignified manner and not get rattled?
So in fact, that's one of the underlying themes of successful family-owned businesses. One is to have good communication, especially about difficult things, because which is one of the big challenges which causes the friction is if you're unable to express yourself. So we had started an exercise of calling in experts from outside, other than the work we were doing ourselves. We had no written constitution, but we had an unwritten one of what could be done, what you could not do, defining roles, defining limits of what you should or should not do, and also on the culture of the organization. I think that's one of the key features of any successful family-owned business is how do you define what you stand for, what you want the future to be, what you want the future generations to do, because you don't want to clone yourself. Really, the succession, the best form of succession is to groom the next generation to be able to take up the values, but the system, the technologies, the process they follow will be their own, and that's an acceptance for the elder generation to have. So to your question, this sometimes happens proactively. Sadly, in too many cases, it's a forced conversation when differences come up, either when the businesses are going down the tube or when individuals in the family have the differences, and the differences could have nothing to do with the business. And then what starts to happen is those differences start to play up in boardrooms and in business conversation when you're doing annual plans. So the allocation of resources gets distorted because you like somebody or don't like somebody. That, I think, is a time when it's important to have a very quick conversation. And the more it's done behind closed doors, without making too much noise, without ruffling feathers, and without impacting the businesses, the smoother it would be, and I also believe the better it would be both for the business and the family. Because too often we forget, one distinction of the family-owned business is that you not only need to manage the business well, that you need to manage families. And some of the best family-owned businesses today are putting their best talent to manage the family rather than the business. Because the belief is, for the business, you can and you will be able to get high-quality professionals, often who are better trained and skilled than you.
You know, one patriarch, when I was writing my books, told me to run a business is easy, to run a family is hard, but to run a family business is the hardest thing of all.
It is true, actually.
But Sunil, I'm going to take you totally away.
Yep.
You know, if you look at the Tatas, they created a phenomenal constitution that either you could reinvest in business or you had to invest in civil society through the trusts.
Right.
But after that, most Indian business families had to create townships because they didn't exist. You know,
especially for the large plants, plants.
So you had to build the school, you had to build the hospital, etc.
Yeah.
But thereafter, when liberalization happened and infrastructure started getting built and government started doing some of that, we have found that, you know, you can take Premji and maybe you can take Nadar. There have not been that kind of focus on philanthropy in India as there has been, say, in the US, you know. Now you are doing your own, you know, creative museum, which is a living museum, which will have the arts. But help me understand this.
So I think the culture of giving is not new in India, by the way. Historically, people have given either to the local charitable hospital, the local school, the local temple, etc. Even putting, clean matkas of cool water outside your home was a tradition. But large organized giving, you're absolutely right, is a new phenomenon because our system did not allow accumulation of wealth. Our revenue tax collection system, the taxes were up to 97% at one time, as you know. So it's only, plus the growth in the economy has created people with wealth. So large organized giving is a new phenomena. For us as a family, however, it has been traditionally done. We don't like to make announcements, but we have been deeply involved in education, in healthcare, in clean drinking water, gender issues, skilling, rural development. And the big one, as you mentioned, we are focusing on is arts and culture. I do believe this is foundational to all of us. It is civilizational to us as people and beings. And it is important for India to realize its own strength lie in its soft power. So, which is why we are spending so much time, effort, and resources on opening up access to the arts, encouraging unknown artists as also figuring out how to showcase the best art forms in India. Also, we're trying to create a platform which will encourage all art forms to come together the way it was in India. If you go back a few centuries, there were no silos and partitions. So we encourage visual arts as much as performing arts, as culinary arts and performance arts, as also experimentation in all of them and research in all of them. Basically creating a modern ecosystem of the traditions of the deep heritage that we have in this is amazing history of India.
So it's been fascinating talking to you, Sunil, and I just want to say that perhaps only in India could a Rahul Bajaj tell me that his role model was your father.
True, and they were very good friends. So, so we are trying actually to build this culture in our organization to remain friends with as many people as we can be. So relationships is one of the key things we focus on. And the same thing I'm trying to tell my daughter Shefali, who's actively now involved with me, both in the business as also in the foundation, is that our biggest strength comes from our culture. And our culture is relationships, accepting, ensuring that people remain our biggest strength. Doing everything that we do with humility, because we are never the only ones with good ideas. Ensuring fairness with all that we deal with. It's an easy word to say, can be very, very difficult sometimes when you're doing a negotiation. So we have many dealers and supplier chain partners who work with us now, third generation, fourth generation. So for us, that culture is actually the anchor on which we rest all of our activities, business or otherwise.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you, Janmay, and thank you for doing this. I think this is a brilliant idea to talk about family-owned businesses. This is a subject which is not much talked about and needs to have much more conversation. We need to air issues which are difficult to get out, because the majority of the businesses, majority of the job creation, majority of the tax collection is coming from family-owned businesses.
Correct. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.